Hello and welcome to ILTV Insider. I'm Calev Ben-David. It's a critical week for Israel as the government faces some hard decisions on major security issues amid a sense that time is running out. Running out for the 20 remaining live hostages being held by Hamas, for the military operation in Gaza amid mounting IDF casualties and growing domestic and international pressure, and for Benjamin Netanyahu's increasingly fragile coalition seemingly cracking under the political strain of resolving the Haredi draft dispute. Now, the government must soon make some decisions on these and other key security and diplomatic issues, and these choices carry varying degrees of risk. There are no easy answers to these challenges. Well, joining us to discuss and debate these and other matters is Reserves IDF Lieutenant Colonel Maurice Hirsch. He is director of the Initiative for Palestinian Authority Accountability and Reform at the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, and he is also a former director of military prosecution for Judea and Samaria. With us also, Mossi, a former Knesset member for the Meretz party and a leading figure in Israel's peace movement for many years. Gentlemen, let's dive right in. As I said, the government is going to have to be making big decisions. Before we look at the broader picture, let's look at the issue on the table right now, which is the hostage deal and ceasefire deal under negotiation in Qatar. We know what the general outlines of this are for a 60-day ceasefire, an IDF withdrawal, partial withdrawal from Gaza, and the release of 10 of the 20 life hostages and about 18 of those remaining. Based on what we know, and we don't have all the facts, we don't have all the details being negotiated, but based on what we know, Mossi, should the government move ahead with this deal?
Yes, but basically, the government should move ahead way more than that. We can have a deal for releasing all the hostages and ending the war. Ending the war, and of course releasing prisoners. Because of the wish of the government to go on with the war, we cannot release all the hostages, and this is a real dilemma and a real tragedy. Because if Hamas release 8 or 10 of them, depending on what time term, who are they? Why don't all of them? Because the government insists of going on with the war. What is the goal of this war? Eliminate the Hamas? We see again and again that the promises of the government were of nothing. And I think Prime Minister Netanyahu said more than a year ago that we are one stage from victory. We are not there. And what is victory? The government decided on March 18 to break the deal, the previous deal with the Hamas. What did we achieve in those 4 months since March 18? More soldiers fall. We don't know what happened to the hostages. More Palestinian casualties, not only terrorists, but many people who are innocent. What for? For what are we doing? And in the last weeks, the majority of the soldiers who fall were not because of the Hamas, but because of the, accidents or misunderstanding or...
Well, okay, so that's still being investigated, but yes, there are some cases of that. Well, I want to go to Maurice because Mossi goes right to sort of the heart of the issue the government is struggling with this hostage deal, which is the condition, Hamas's condition, that there not be a temporary ceasefire, but it really be a permanent ceasefire and full IDF withdrawal from Gaza. So I want to give you a chance to...
So Hamas's goal right from the start, Calev, from October 7, has been to murder as many Jews as possible and to survive another day in order to carry on murdering Jews and to try and destroy Israel. That's the context that we have to look at the deal in, and nothing else. Once we give in to the genocidal terrorists, once we really give in to their demands and their whims, and allow them to live another day, to survive another day, to rehabilitate themselves, and then to plan the next October 7, we've already lost the war. We have to understand that. We are going to go back to another war and another cycle. That is not the way this war should end. It should end with, and yes, we can, Mossi, we can achieve a complete success and complete victory over Hamas. As regards the specific deal, here I would agree with Mossi that there is no point in going on with a partial deal. A partial deal only brings back possibly 10 of the live hostages out of the 20 or 23 that there still are. And then what are we going to do in 2 months' time? In 60 days' time? After that, where do we go? What are we going to do with the rest of the hostages? How do we bring them back? But I have to put in a little asterisk. Anyone who presents the idea or the notion that Hamas, in any constellation, is going to agree to the release of all of the hostages is lying to himself, is lying to the public, and is lying to the international community. Hamas understands the hostages are their insurance policy, and it doesn't matter what they say, what they commit to, they will never release them, and therefore the only way to guarantee the release and the freeing of the hostages is by Israeli soldiers operating on the ground and freeing them. Mossi asked, well, what has happened in the last few months? 9 of the hostages came back just in the last few months. We started off with 59, we're now down to 50. That is what's important. It may be slow progress, but the progress is being made. Hamas as a military institution is almost obliterated. You're now talking about individual cells that are still operating. They can be crushed too, as long as we pursue the right goals and the right way of forwarding the continuation of the war.
All right, I'd like to respond to there, Mossi, with 2 key points that Maurice is making, that just to end the war now would basically leave Hamas in a situation perhaps where it could regroup and carry out another attack, be it on the scale of October 7th or not, and the unlikelihood that Hamas is really going to release all of the hostages when, as Maurice says, that's the only card they have left to basically maintain their survival in Gaza.
I think I'm not spokesperson of Hamas, and Maurice neither, so I don't know what Hamas wants. I do know that if it was true, then for sure the Israeli Prime Minister has to say, okay, we want to end the war and to have deal and release all of them. And then if they say no, then everybody knows that they said no. Right now, it seems the opposite. Because they say yes, maybe they lie. And Netanyahu say no. He says, I want to go on with the war. I'm committed to the war. This is what he has said. And later he said, I'm committing to Philadelphia Road, now to Morag, and every time he has his new agenda. So this is the basic. If Hamas doesn't want, why does the Israeli government say,
no, but
okay,
that's
we
answering
want?
one question about whether they will release hostages. It doesn't answer the question about leaving Hamas in power in Gaza to commit another attack, cross-border attack.
This is a real problem. But we were told almost 2 years ago that we can dismantle them by using power and more power and more power, and even crimes. But it doesn't happen. So when? When? In 1 year? 1 minute? 10 years? 100 years? How many years we have to fight in order to dismantle their political power? Maybe we have other ways. Yes, I agree that Hamas doesn't have to rule Gaza. So why did the Israeli government say no to the Egyptian plan who said Hamas will not rule Gaza? Why did the Israeli government say no? Why didn't they say, okay, we have to talk about that? We don't agree, but we have to talk about that. So it seems that the Israeli government, maybe they still, like before October 7, want Hamas. Why do they confront the Palestinian Authority all the time if they want to dismantle Hamas?
Okay,
Who do they want to rule Gaza? Israel, Hamas, Palestinian Authority, who?
Okay, I want to give Maurice a chance. First of all, the question of the timeline. What would be the cutoff point for Israel to say, because Hamas is a terror movement, it's not a country or a standing army or even something like in the nature of Iran. But also, let's start also moving to the question of what should be in the day after in Gaza. If not Hamas, what should be there?
So we've already seen it in Gaza and also in Judea and Samaria just in the last few days. There is an alternative Palestinian leadership that is not interested in murdering Jews, not interested in the destruction of Israel, and they can be partners for discussion. That should be the movement going forward.
But you're not let's be clear for our viewers who don't know, you're not referring to the Palestinian Authority in this
I'm
case.
certainly not referring to the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is responsible, no less than Hamas, for the October 7 massacre. They were the ones who educated the Palestinians to hate Jews. They demonized Jews. They dehumanized Jews. That's how 6,000 Gazans get up in the morning and go and murder babies, rape women, kill people wholesale. That was a product of the education of the Palestinian Authority. The terrorists coming across the border on the 7th of October weren't 16 years and under. Why do I say 16 years and under? Because Hamas only took control in 2007. They were older than that. They were people who grew up on the ethos, on the narrative, on the incitement of the Palestinian Authority that incites terrorism, rewards terrorism, and demands that the Palestinians strive to destroy Israel. Those are the terrorists that we brought in through the Oslo Accords, and the Palestinian Authority is a major part of the problem. And if Israel as a country seeks life, they shouldn't be part of the solution.
Are there Palestinians in Gaza ready to take control outside of Hamas?
100%. As part of my job in the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, I'm in contact, and we are in contact with a number of different Palestinian actors that propose alternative leadership, technocratic leadership that isn't nationalistic driven, that isn't seeking the destruction of Israel, that is looking to build Gaza, for example, into the economic powerhouse that it could be. A prime real estate on the Mediterranean, which could be a panacea instead of being a terror threat.
Well, I want Mossi to respond, because this issue of the Palestinian Authority role in potential role in Gaza is key here, because some of the Arab states have said they won't take part unless there is some kind of role for the Palestinian Authority. But you heard what Maurice had to say about the PA.
Yes, but those Palestinian states mean to the PA. Anyhow, I have listened carefully to Maurice, because it's very important to speak more or less like the government who led to the massacre of October 7. Of course, the massacre was committed by the Hamas. All the crimes are Hamas. But this was the attitude that we just heard. Hamas and Palestinian Authority are the same. This is why the government, I would say, let Hamas rule. This is why they let them have the money. This is why they prefer them. Because they see all the Palestinians the same. And this was the mistake, that because of this mistake, almost 2,000 Israelis were killed, and they don't learn anything. They don't study anything from their mistakes. It's amazing, amazing. And he speaks about the incitement. I'm not going to minimize the incitement. Yes, there is incitement in the Palestinian Authority. But I want to remind everybody that according to Oslo Accords, we had to have a joint incitement committee, Israeli-Palestinian, and this was the Israelis who did not let this committee to work because of the incitement in Israel. Just open Channel 12 or Channel 14, or you'll see the incitement. So because of the incitement in Israel, there was no committee. I'm not saying that there is no committee in Palestine. And the destruction of Israel, yes, of course, there are Palestinians who want to distract Israel. But this is the Israeli policy to distract Palestine. They don't recognize Palestine.
Calev, I don't really know what Mossi is referring to. I used to work at Palestinian Media
The reality.
Itamar Marcus, who runs Palestinian Watch, was the Israeli representative to that incitement committee.
I think rather than looking back, I want to look forward. I mean, what Maurice is saying, and others have said, Mossi, that there isn't a Palestinian alternative to the PA and Hamas.
Who support them? Who recognize them?
Who recognizes the PA? The Palestinian people certainly don't. They voted in 2006 for Hamas.
The PA,
you can't change what they voted for.
The PA is, they have a representative in the United Nations. They are recognized. PLO, yes, but of course.
The PLO PA isn't meant to be the same thing.
I know, but the chairperson of the PLO is the chairperson of the PA. And the PLO is recognized by 160 states, and you say, who recognized them? A part of Israel.
The Palestinian people don't recognize them, Mossi.
I tell you who recognized them. Zionism recognized them, because the Zionism, according to Zionism, if you want to be Zionist, you must recognize them, because what is Zionism about?
It's about implementing the right of
homeland for the Jewish people.
You
in
say
the land
that,
of
but
Israel.
it was not. But in the first
what the
Congress,
Zionism was.
in the first Congress in Basel, 1897, the decision was what is Zionism about? Implementation of the Jewish people to the implementation of the rights of the Jewish people according to the law, according to the international law.
As substantial as this debate is, I do want to again turn from history, looking back and looking forward at some of the ideas that have floated about Gaza. Among them, establishing this humanitarian zone in South Gaza to move the population southwards while they repair. Encouraging those Gazans who want to immigrate to leave. These are ideas that have been put out. They're controversial in some quarters. Maurice, your view on some of these
So I would
ideas.
suggest, Calev, that if you don't support the humanitarian zone and the right of the Gazans to flee in the same as every other place in the world, when there's a war, refugees flee, the civilians flee. That's what happened in the Ukraine. That's what happens in every other war. The only war that is unique in its nature is Israel's war with the terrorists in Gaza. There, the civilians have been trapped by Egypt, trapped by the European countries to stay in place no matter what. Imagine what would have happened, how many people would have been saved potentially, had Egypt opened its doors, had the French, who are so in favor of the Hamas government and rule, had they opened their doors. The Canadians said that they would take 5,000 people. As of today, they've taken 300. Why is the world so interested in maintaining or keeping, imprisoning the Gazan people in the Gaza Strip and not allowing them to seek refuge?
All right, well, there are objections within Israel itself, and I'm sure Mossi has a...
I have no objection to somebody who want to live, but I of course don't support making people live. And this is the real difference. Now, we are in Israel. You ask why the world doesn't take them? We had
I know why. It's because they hate the Gazans.
We got here few thousand refugees from Africa, and immediately we closed all our borders because we didn't want to get anybody else. So unfortunately, all the nations are like us, thinking about themselves, like we think only about ourselves. But the outcome is very bad for everything. So it's not that we are a nation that say to the African refugees or, I don't know, people from other places, okay, please come here, we have work for you, like you advise other states to do.
You're talking about the work migrants that went through Egypt in order to get to Israel. We'll see, it's a far stretch comparison.
2 million came to Israel. Out of them, 30,000 or 50,000 came to Israel, and we stopped them.
It's a fascinating discussion. We're straying a little off topic, discussing about the African migrants. How much of a factor should be the concerns about expanding the Abraham, finding a solution in Gaza that would allow for the expansion of the Abraham Accords, for example, bringing in countries like Saudi Arabia, even Qatar, and of course now we're talking about Syria?
I think expanding the Abraham Accords is an imperative now. That's what we need to do. We need to understand to move away from that old and failed paradigm of land for peace and to discuss peace for peace and negotiations based on our own individual countries' interests. And that's what the Abraham Accords are talking about. They're talking about peace because it's in the interest of all of the countries. It's in Saudi Arabia's interest to have good relations with Israel and for Israel to have good relations with Saudi Arabia. It shouldn't be dependent on who the next rejectionist Palestinian leader is.
But Maurice, the Saudis have said they want to see a political horizon for the Palestinians.
When you listen to the Saudis speak, they say one thing, the actions say possibly another thing. The Saudis haven't funded the Palestinian Authority for years. They believe that the Palestinian Authority should disband and should be reconstituted. They shouldn't carry on with a corrupt system that is rife with nepotism, rife with really stealing international aid to enrich the Palestinian leaders. The Saudis aren't interested in that as well. They're interested in progress for the Palestinian people, and they don't see that in the Palestinian Authority.
Mossi respond. I should point out that countries in the Abraham Accords have not cut off ties with Israel, the existing ones, the UAE and Bahrain, despite the situation in Gaza.
I would be very happy to expand the Abraham Accords, but of course the most important state here is Palestine, because the three soldiers who fell yesterday in Gaza, this was in the battle with the Palestinians, not with the Saudis. And the 2,000 who were killed since October 7, almost 2,000, a little bit less, were killed because of our or murdered because of our confrontation, our conflict with the Palestinians. So I would be very happy to expand Abraham Accord with every nation, with every state, with Saudi Arabia, but the most important one is Palestine. And if we don't expand the accords to Palestine, then we still are going to have the same problems that we have right now.
Maurice, you want to respond?
We're closer to peace with Saudi Arabia than we are with an institution that actually puts a price tag on the head of every Jew and says, go out and murder a Jew, you'll get paid. That doesn't work. You cannot make peace with someone who puts a price tag on my head, on your head, on Mossi's head and says, go out and murder Mossi and I will reward you. That's the Palestinian Authority. That's the Palestinian Authority leadership. With them, similar to Hamas, there is no discussion. There is no peace. When they give up on their pay-for-slay policy, then possibly we can discuss a way forward. Whilst it still exists, there is no way to discuss.
30 seconds, Mossi, I'll give you one response.
We kill more Palestinians than what they kill us. And if we occupy Saudi Arabia, then we will see more confrontations that we don't see now, because we have conflicts with the Palestinians. We are in the same land. We occupy their land. And this is why we have this violent conflict. And we have to end this conflict without any relation to Saudi Arabia or anybody else.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for a lively and intelligent and respectful discussion and debate. Clearly, some disagreements here about how to achieve certain goals, but I think the goal to be achieved, primarily since we are all wearing the pins of the hostages and remind us of the 50 hostages, the 20 still remaining, that remains a key goal that we all want to see achieved one way or another. I want to thank Maurice Hirsch and Mossi for joining us. That's all the time we have tonight. I'm Calev Ben-David. This has been ILTV's Insider. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more conversations just like this one, straight from Israel.